Everyone, Jared Sandler here with you. Hope everyone is staying warm, staying safe, especially if you're out on the roads. I wanted to just give an immediate reaction to the news that Josh Jung underwent surgery this morning to repair his torn left labrum. A few days ago, it was reported he was experiencing some shoulder issues, and it was going to be determined whether or not surgery was the next step. And it turns out it is, and it has been executed as the next step. So I haven't really been able to fully digest everything here. Just want to quick hit some of the bullet points that come to mind. So first thing, 6 to 8 months is the timetable for his return. And from what I'm gathering, 6 months is really the beginning of when he can DH. So probably take a little bit longer for him to be back in the field. It is his non-throwing shoulder, but you don't want to put him in a position where he has to dive and expose the left shoulder to anything prematurely. The thought is that, he'll be able to swing a bat a little bit sooner than he'll be comfortably able to play in the field. Now, the fact that it is his non-throwing shoulder is good in that, it's not like he had a cannon of an arm to begin with. And if there is any wear and tear in the arm, it shouldn't affect the throwing and the arm strength. Now, as a right-handed hitter, your left shoulder is that front side shoulder. And, it's not like you're going to be immune to any sort of challenges coming back from that from a physical standpoint, but certainly better that, it's not his throwing. Any labrum, any shoulder labrum injury. There's also the hip labrum. Any shoulder labrum injury on the throwing side is really challenging to come back from. Really, the first thing I thought about is you're just unlucky that Josh Jung's not on the 40-man roster because it's service time. He's not able to accrue, and it's another year of kicking the can down the road for him, just personally. But from the Rangers standpoint, he's not on the 40-man. They don't need to place him on the 60-day IL. The fact that he's not on the 40-man right now in this present moment, I guess, is advantageous because of the lockout. Had he been on the 40-man, there would be limited communication, even in this case, between the team and the player. But the Rangers were able to communicate with him as if there was no lockout because he's not on the 40-man roster. Another thing that popped up, great for the Rangers to have the depth that they have. This is not the example that they wanted, but this is a perfect example of why having prospect depth, having organizational depth at all levels is super important. First of all, there's no guarantee that Josh Jung, as a healthy player, is going to be a big time contributor. There's no guarantee for anyone. But certainly when guys get hurt, which is, just a part of, any sort of physical activity, you need to have depth. You need to have options. And while the Rangers might not have someone they feel as good about as a potential opening day third baseman from a prospect standpoint, having guys like Ezekiel Duran and Justin Foscue and Josh Smith and others who now you could say, hey, third base, it makes that utilitarian mindset a little more relevant and maybe a little more practical. So I think the Rangers were going to always explore guys like Foscue and Duran and Smith at other positions, especially with the signings of Seager and Simeon. But now just the fact you have that depth is huge. As far as opening day candidates, well, the Rangers could still go outside of the organization if they felt like that was a route they wanted to pursue when the lockout ends. Internally, Andy Ibanez and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa seem to be the most likely candidates to fill that role. Isaiah is certainly the better defensive player, Gold Glover at third base 2 seasons ago. Andy Ibanez is the guy who probably has more upside offensively, especially with the way he figured things out in the second half of his stint with the Rangers last year. Is this a lost year for Josh Jung? You certainly hope not. 6 months. I mean, we're basically, let's just call it March 1st. We're at the end of February. That puts you in the month of September. So, I hate to say this is going to be a lost year, but it's going to be awfully tough for Josh Jung to get significant, meaningful game action. And so, my guess is at that point, there's no reason to rush it, especially with a young player, a prospect, a first round pick, no reason to rush Josh Jung. This was always going to be kind of an introduction to Major League Baseball year for him, whether it was on opening day or shortly thereafter. So you're just delaying that. It's not like, this shouldn't be something that just totally crushes him. But you do hate that your first round pick from a few years ago now has had a lost year in some respects in 2020 with COVID. And now a seemingly lost year this year from game action again until September. We'll probably play Winter League, and then you hope comes back in 2023 as not just a candidate to be your opening day third baseman. You hope that he's able to show you enough physically and return to health that, you feel really good about him as your opening day third baseman. So that's just some of the initial thoughts that I have. We'll obviously have more time to digest this, but unfortunate news. You certainly feel for the person. You feel for Josh Jung, a young kid who's eagerly awaiting his major league debut, had a great 2021 season at AA and AAA, answered a lot of questions about his ability to hit for power. And I think there's a lot of excitement about the potential that Josh Jung was going to be your opening day third baseman, or if not on opening day, shortly thereafter. And it just doesn't look like that's Major League Baseball is going to be in the cards for him here in 2022, unless recovery just goes spectacularly and the Rangers feel good about giving him some opportunities towards the end of the year. So we'll have to wait and see. But some unfortunate news from the Josh Jung standpoint, and we'll continue to follow that as the summer progresses.